All right, everybody, welcome back. I am Ken from Heroes Diving for the Sea, and today I have Ethan Neff here with me, and we're going to talk about some veteran and first responders issues. So, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you're running for?
Sure. Thank you, Ken. Yes, I'm Ethan Neff. I'm running for District 30 Senate. That includes Bingham and Butte counties, and I'm really excited to do it. This is my first time running for a political office, and I'm excited to get the chance to represent Idaho at the state capitol.
Oh, I'm glad you had the time to come out and share with us. So we'd like to focus on veterans and first responders issues. That's what we're here for.
Yep.
And there's just such a broad array of subject matter. And I actually gave you some ideas of stuff that we can talk about. Did you have anything you wanted to start off with?
Well, you're right. It's just a really big topic, and you name it, we could go there probably. But when it's limited to like veterans and first responders, there's still so much, especially when it comes to the PTSD effects. And I'm going to look forward to some of what you're going to go there with that, and we'll touch on that because I think it's really, really important, and veterans are often overlooked.
Yeah, it's, you know, coming from the veteran standpoint, I hear all the Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and when they do veterans discounts, we get to thank you for your service, and all that stuff is great.
Yeah.
But this is, and this might be a little unfair. I'm going to throw this at you though. So we talked a little while back about the suicide we had from one of our first responders.
Yes.
And then I got, after dealing with that for 3 or 4 days, I was told that one of our veterans had cancer, and it's probably terminal. I'm working with another one of our veterans who has cancer, and it looks like he's probably going to go into remission. He's probably going to make it through.
Good.
And then right after that, I got a call. We lost another one of our veterans to suicide. And that's not somebody that's around here. It's just somebody I knew years past. But
Yeah.
the overlying theme for all of those people, the one suicide, the firefighter, I can't be sure on, but the others, they were all sick to some extent, the cancer, other things along with it. And every single one of them, the health issues that they have, they think that it's from chemical exposure from their service.
Yes, that would totally make sense. Whether I have an uncle who was in Vietnam and he's suffering from Agent Orange, he has been helped quite a bit by the VA already, but he's still suffering the side effects of that. And we just know, whether it's from vaccines or the environments they're in, whatever it is, there's a lot of stuff the military goes through where they end up with chemicals in their bodies that they're just not designed to handle.
Absolutely. So, from my experience, we burn pits. I was an engineer. We dug burn pits, and then they'd burn just everything. Human waste, medical waste, metal ammunitions, explosive dunnage, and then those toxic clouds would just blow over where we were sleeping. And then some of these guys, so like the Special Forces guys, I know that they're exposed to quite a bit more than the rest of us are as well. So,
especially with stuff that they take just to make them focus during mission operations. That's something we in civilized life never have to deal with, but go ahead and continue, but yeah.
I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on, can you think of anything that maybe we can do to mitigate some of that? I mean, I feel like as veterans and first responders, we're the guinea pigs for a lot of this stuff.
Right. That's really true. And honestly, I would just say right off, I would try to say, I don't really have, that's not really an Idaho jurisdiction, but at a federal level, I would like to see something where military are not treated in any way different than civilians' rights.
I like that, because when you get deployed, you have no choice what vaccines they give you.
Right.
You usually don't even know what they're giving you. So
exactly.
In the state of Idaho, we also have the Army National Guard, the Air National Guard. There's also a Marine Corps Reserve unit, and they're at the Orchard Training Facility or Gowan Field area. I know that there's been some work out there to try and reduce some of that. Have you read or heard much about the living conditions and the molds and the toxins in the living areas?
When it comes to facilities like that, this is the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll give you a quick background. So a lot of it's the Marine Corps bases, and what
Okay.
we're winding up with is the buildings are old, they're not maintained, so there's toxic chemicals in the insulation, in the water pipes.
And once that gets in, there's just so many issues, health issues that come up.
Yeah.
Wow.
So on an Idaho side, we have. Of course, we have that military installation. Lots of units from other states come in and train there as well. What are your thoughts on the state actually going in and doing some deep testing in those facilities and seeing what we're actually being exposed to?
I think that's a great idea. It's within the jurisdiction, especially for anything National Guard related. When it comes to U.S. Army or Marine, I still think that should be done, and I'd like to see at least a motion to have that done from the state level, because that is very important. You can't have public servants living in that sort of conditions.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that's cool. You always hear people say, I'll think about it, and nobody actually pushes stuff
Well,
forward.
and really, it's often what comes to mind, because like I said, I'd never heard of this mold issue before, but now that I've heard of it, I'm aware of it, I would want to do something about it. Because I do care deeply for the armed forces. I have relatives in most of the branches, or I had relatives in most of the branches of the Army, Air Force, Marines, and just finding out what they have to go through, and then hearing from this perspective in relation to the Marine base, that's really tragic and should not happen.
Yeah. You know, as we're dealing with stuff on the state side of things, whether or not it's military issues or first responder issues, we have a big problem with communication. You brought up communicating about these issues because you hadn't heard about them. I would hope that everybody in this country would have heard of these issues and would have been working on it. What are your thoughts on how we can, from a state level, from a Senate level, how do we improve the communication between the citizens, the legislature, and then the general information throughout the public? You thought about that much?
That's a tough one, because you got to think about what the jurisdictions are, especially as it relates to national versus state. Now, anything National Guard, yes, the legislature can definitely be involved in. What I would really like to see is a cooperation between civilian groups who have the ear of the legislature and the national levels to communicate publicly about what's happening.
Okay. So I gave you a list of stuff that we could talk about. Is there anything you wanted to hit on specifically, or?
Well, you've listed those 4 points: cancer, PTSD, chronic illness, opioids. I would like to touch on the opioids, and as well as like the disability. Honestly, quite a few of these are of interest.
Okay.
So why don't we, I'd like to go over the topic of the disability.
Okay.
How are you seeing that? Let's say, how are you seeing that done well currently, handled currently? And this could be both nationally and state level. How's that being handled currently well? And where is it not being handled well, in your opinion?
Well, actually, I did an interview with somebody the other night, and this person was incredibly knowledgeable about everything that went through pastor. And
Excellent.
It was great. But she was telling me about House Bill 642, which was just recently signed into law by the governor.
Is this person in the legislature? Or
used to be, and is currently running for office again.
Yeah.
So, she had quite a bit of experience, and what she brought up specifically was, so this bill extended out the disability and death benefits for first responders and their family, and that's blanket wide over the state. And it was a unanimous vote.
Yep.
So, we don't get unanimous votes on anything.
Right. Very rare.
And to get that out there, and after she said that, I started really researching all the other states that I could find, looking up what they did. Idaho is actually the leader on that one.
Wow.
Other states have stuff like that, but our program that they just passed with that bill is certainly the best, if not one of the best that's out there. So Idaho has done a great job. And it's been a long time coming. And that was the thing that motivated everybody was we had those shootings up north. And so that pushed the legislature to do that. So,
And let me just jump in right there. It frustrates me when a reactionary thing finally gets something good done. Whereas in a country like ours, we should be taking care of everybody and to whatever extent possible. But when we have something come up and tragic, and now suddenly the legislature gets on board as a reaction almost, I'd like to see more of a proactive approach to issues like this.
I'd love to hear you say that, because proactive is really what we need on so many of these issues. The VA healthcare system has a lot of problems. One of the things that's been plaguing us recently, past 4 or 5 years, is veterans putting on their dress uniform and going into VA clinics and hospitals and shooting themselves. And most of them, that's obvious a statement.
Yeah, yeah.
And that has been hidden from the public in a lot of ways. You actually have to search to find that most of the time.
I think I've only heard of less than a handful of that happening. Can you speak to how much this has happened?
It's increased about 300% over the last 4 years.
Wow.
I think that the highest ranking person to do was a colonel, and I believe that was in Phoenix. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But that leads us into the opioid topic. I know that a lot of these guys cannot get pain management medication.
Yeah.
And when everything else hurts, it hurts to wake up, it hurts to breathe, it hurts to walk. And we have a knee-jerk reaction with the opioid crisis that instead of dealing with the problem like grown-ups, we just went through and blanket chopped most of this stuff off and said, we're not going to give you pain meds anymore.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned you want to talk about that. So what are your thoughts?
Right. Well, and I initially, just the first thing right off is simply you can't blanket cut off anything if there's other dependencies on it. Everything has to be phased. I would prefer it always going in the direction of less government and so on. But in terms of this, you just simply can't do that. And that's, I'm not entirely aware of everything involved with it, but I did know of that. And you just leave people in a crisis with no support.
Yeah.
So this honestly, in my mind, this touches on a little bit of what's happened to, like we mentioned earlier, special forces and different branches of the military, essentially being experimented on, but they ended up with these substances. I don't know. Would you say it's quite related to the opioid crisis, or not?
The stuff that they're exposed to, or the
right? Does that sometimes lead to the similar issues?
You know, that's hard to say. So I run into
probably separate.
Yeah, and on a personal note, I take a lot of opioids daily.
Okay.
And that has been a fight. They're constantly trying to cut me off from that. I think that a lot of the problems that we have physically can lead to dependency, and some people are definitely more prone to that than others. But what I'm seeing happen, and I've seen this happen on quite a few different cases, is they can't get the pain meds they need, so they compensate with marijuana, alcohol, heroin, and so we've created a whole slew of other problems. Yeah.
Has there been, and this is almost a little bit of a change of topic, but I always like to look for like solutions. That's kind of what I'm trained to do. Solutions, and what is an outlook on that? Is there any research or other evidence that supports ways for veterans, everyone involved, first responders, to get off of opioids? Are there like natural medicines or anything like that will help them get off lifelong dependencies?
You know, there have been a lot of programs, and they've tried different things. There's a new drug, Belbuca, which is horrifyingly expensive, $1,500 a month.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yes,
and it is an opioid, but it doesn't have a lot of the dependency issues and things like that. From a natural standpoint, the thing I hear through the community the most from veterans and first responders is marijuana. CBD and the stuff with the THC helps, because it helps with the PTSD and it helps with the pain.
Yeah, and that touches on. They're trying to find a solution to several issues that just haven't been resolved at other levels. So they're having to try to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
That is really tough. I'm not sure even, I mean, that's a terrible situation to be in. I'm thankful I'm not there myself, but I'd like to know more about how to help resolve that.
And that's something, as the election goes on, once the primaries are over, I'd love to have you back and talk more about the opioids. And I can get a few people in here. Maybe we can do a round table.
That'd be great.
I know people who have almost lost everything because of dependency to other things because they couldn't manage their pain.
Right.
And then people who successfully manage it with marijuana, people who successfully manage it with prescription drugs. So I think that could be really beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, and it's a really tough issue, like I mentioned again. And I think I had heard that you've got a lot of your efforts are focusing on private sector, and I think that is really, really good because that's where I think the community can get together. And if we can get the community to realize the government is not really handling this for us, we need to take care of us. That's traditionally American. We, as citizens, have to take care of ourselves. It's not the government's job to step in and provide everything for us, except for obligations, like we talked about, just blanket cutting off a reliance that is needed, that's going to result in disaster. So there has to be a balance. I want to see further reduction in reliance, but at the same time, we also have to have the community gathering together behind the people who need it.
Yeah. And this is a great community. So
I love it here.
It's fantastic. Bingham County in of itself is amazing. And then we go off into Pocatello and Idaho Falls, and we've got some great folks there that are doing amazing things.
Good.
So in Pocatello, there's a gentleman down there who actually built his own hyperbaric chamber.
Oh, wow.
So it's 30 feet, 40 feet long each, because it's sectional. There's one piece on each end. And he's doing research on it right now to see if it's helping with PTSD, if it's helping with physical disabilities. There's a lot of research that he's doing that is based on traumatic brain injury causing PTSD.
Wow.
His theory is that you don't have PTSD if you haven't had a traumatic brain injury.
I think I've heard that. Maybe you had mentioned that before, and that's a very reasonable theory, I'll say. Because it happens from so many things, but the end result, at some point, depends on the formation time. Was it when you were young or older? But there's also always so many differences. So yeah, I honestly would like to meet this person because I think what he's doing is great.
I can arrange that. So we were talking about it. Heroes Diving for the Sea has been working on how we can help people. We have a relationship built with him now, so the testing criteria he's using for PTSD, we're going to use that with all of our programs. So
good.
We have other things, we just started the BASE program. Did I tell you about that?
No, I don't know about this.
Okay, so...
Is that an acronym?
No, it actually isn't. It's bass guitar, just like the three that are behind you.
Oh, yeah, I heard a little bit, but please continue.
Okay.
Yes.
So the theory is that playing a bass guitar helps with PTSD because you have the deep tones. And then you're also using both hands in combination with each other.
Yes.
And you have to go through procedure. Music, so you can read musical note or tab. And we won't go into all the different stuff.
Well, that's especially interesting to me because of my background in music as well.
Right.
Especially classical, but singing as well, where different frequencies, and that was a big thing for classical composers especially, they discovered frequencies that were especially beneficial to the body. There's been a lot of research done on like early childhood, what helps the brain. So I think that's definitely on the right track. That is really good to hear.
Yeah. Well, and I want to see if it expands out into all music. Because
and it'll really depend on the style of music too, because I think we're created to resonate. Not resonate's probably not the right word, but our brains are created to react favorably. And actually, resonation is because that's a key of music. So I could almost say it's on a resonation level.
Yeah, I firmly believe that there is definitely healing power to music, especially when it comes to brain injuries and the psychological disorders.
Yeah.
And what we're doing with the folks in Pocatello and what we're doing is with scuba and hyperbarics, we can add oxygen above our normal atmospheric oxygen level and then apply pressure to the body. And we can test and see the different effects because in hyperbarics you can add more oxygen than you can in scuba. And in scuba you can add more pressure than you can in hyperbarics. So that might give us some ideas, but we're we're all looking for anything that might help.
What is your opinion on what adding the oxygen or the pressure will do? What does it actually do?
So the way the science has been explained to me is it enhances the growth of stem cells.
Oh, okay.
And so what it's doing is you're adding the oxygen, saturating the tissue with the oxygen. You're forcing the body to generate more stem cells and to heal faster, because your oxygen is a critical component to healing any wound. And if we can go up above normal levels, it really...
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
I know he's experiencing quite a bit of success with it. And here's where the line gets hazy with me when it comes to government involvement. So he has done all of this on his own dime.
Okay.
No insurance will pay for the treatments. The VA won't pay for the treatments. But let me give you a couple of side examples of what the VA will do. Massage therapy, which I'm certainly not opposed to. Chiropractic care. And then we go into acupuncture, which is definitely a very non-traditional treatment. I tried that, did not like it, did not care for it, not one bit.
Never tried. I would.
But so if they're going with non-traditionals like that and they're starting to expand past that, I think that they should really look hard at hyperbarics. That would be, if we're going to fund something from the government standpoint and, at least pay for the service, that is definitely, I think, money well spent from the healthcare portion of our government.
Right. I would say I would like to see a lot more research done. And I'm not in favor of government spending in general, but there is already a lot of spending happening. I would like to see some of that redirected to research a lot of these different treatment methods, whether it's the hyperbarics, adding the oxygen. There was another one I was just thinking of a minute ago, and it'll come back to me. But yeah, I'd like to see a lot more research on that so that there is more potential of reducing dependency on drugs, which just cannot fix the problem. I would love to see cures, or in the direction of cures.
And the VA, like anything in government, is always on a roller coaster. When I got out of the Army, the first year I was back, if I were to take all the medications I had, I could fill this chair with my monthly medications. And it was just insane, the amount of stuff. Just giant jars of all kinds of different things. And then I started to read up on it as well. And you have drugs that are fighting each other in your body. Uppers, downers, different psychotropic drugs. And I think we're over-medicating.
Oh, well, I won't. That topic could go a lot of ways. And I won't go there necessarily, but I 100% agree.
Okay.
Because that applies to America.
Overall.
So and you really, I'm always in favor of solutions. I want solutions. If someone is forced to take a medication of some sort for the rest of their life, they've never been cured. All we've done is given them a crutch. Now, I won't say that is not necessary in some situations. There are situations that needs that. But I will always be in favor of exploring and finding out ways to find cures.
And the whole person method. Where you're looking at everything. It's
holistic,
Exactly. One of the things that has come up recently that the VA has been pushing for is cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's how you change your behaviors to reduce pain.
Okay.
And I've been going through that. I do it about once a month through the VA. And my doctor talks to me about pacing myself, which I don't do well. I'm always going.
I've met you.
And people can't see what this room looks like. This is, there's a lot of setup that goes into this.
The funny thing is, I understand it. I get along with this. So I need pacing too.
Ferret on crack, I've been described that way before. But I think that's definitely something that we should really consider, and maybe even on the state level, work towards some of those things. Because I'm very different than other people. Other people are different than me. So things that are going to work for me for pain management might not work for you, would certainly not work for my wife. But I really do like the idea that they've come up with there on helping you through the process of what may or may not help you to feel better and to get through some of the pain and some of the PTSD. So I think there's something we can do there on a state level.
Is there anything currently being done at the state level here for that, in terms of cognitive behavior modification, or what was that again?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Cognitive behavioral therapy. What is happening currently for that, I should say? Because you've been able to do it. How far away did you have to go to do that?
This is something I want to see in Idaho.
Oh, we just opened a can of worms.
Well, we did, but it's great. So the VA has come up with, it finally made it functional. It's called VA Video Connect.
Oh, okay.
And I can do it with, all the equipment in this room. I can do it on my computer. I can do it on my phone. And what it is, you log in through the secure government website, and you get to talk to your doctor face to face. I do not know where my psychiatrist lives. I don't know where he works. I've never met the man face to face. I can tell you what he looks like. My behavioral therapist.
Yep.
I have no idea where she lives, no idea where she works. And so that remote process is great, because when you've got PTSD, you don't want to go to places like doctor's offices and Walmart. The crowds, the noise, the everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that
let me jump in again,
please.
though. What you just mentioned, and that your blanket statement, you don't want to go to a doctor's office and Walmart's, but once again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. But we could probably generalize and say that is most of the time, but we can't really generalize to create a rule or anything like that. It's just that's a faulty way of reasoning, where it's like, okay, they have PTSD. Well, we can't do this. We can do this. So I just wanted to pause you there real quick, because that's a common thing I see, where we're just going to give everyone the same treatment and it's going to work.
Yeah. Some people thrive on that connection with other people, going to the store, going to a doctor's office. For some of us, that's the only time they interface with other people.
Yeah. And I'm not saying what you said is in any way negative or so on. I'm just pointing out it's different, which is where I think the technological aspect of being able to do the video conferencing is great. I think it would also be great if you have the option, because some people will probably need that in person.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's really great. And I didn't know that they were able to do video conferencing for that, or video consultations. But that's good.
Yeah, and I think from an Idaho standpoint, we need to push that and go with our medical programs and the things that the state is involved in.
Yes.
I would love to see the video conferencing become more available for people who want it.
I mean, just straight off, I would say that's a positive step in the freedom direction. You get a lot more. You don't have to sit in an office for an hour of time. This is when you're there, and it'll save everyone a lot of time. I think, especially on the private side of it.
Yeah. And we tend to overcomplicate things with government.
Tell me about it.
One of the things that I find terribly frustrating is, again, when we talk with the opioid crisis. So VA Video Connect. My doctor is in Salt Lake, my pain management doctor.
Okay.
So, but I have to go see him every 90 days. I have to drive from East Idaho to Salt Lake and then back.
Okay.
And that in and of itself can be hard, if you're having a bad pain day, which happens. And most of us who suffer from chronic pain or through PTSD, it's never the same one day to the other. We always wake up wondering what fresh hell we're going to see that day. So that can be difficult. But the reason we have to do that is because the government got so overly involved in pain management. My doctor, my primary care doctor, cannot prescribe pain meds. And then local doctors, I use a local doctor for some things here in town, and he can't prescribe them. So all the power that the doctors had to treat the patient and treat the whole person, especially the doctor that you see most, they no longer have the ability to do that, and that is an overcomplication directly from government interference.
Yeah, and that's a tricky one because, in general, less restrictions are better in my opinion. And I honestly would like to hear your take on what are some possible solutions. Number one, and this is a bit more federal as well, but still, there are federal representatives in this state, so that's something that they could get the message as well. Is it a matter of distributing centers more? Is it, I mean, just thinking outside the box here, I'm thinking traveling clinics, more of that. What are some solutions that could help resolve this?
So, what I would see as a solution is getting rid of the face-to-face requirements. I mean, what benefit do I get going to see him in person than over video conferencing? So when you're taking not just opioids, but other pain management meds,
right,
you do have to do urinalysis. They check you for alcohol and illicit drugs, which is fair and reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. They also want to check your weight, your blood pressure, those sorts of things.
Where do you get that done? Like, is that at home, or how do you get that done?
No, that's all in Salt Lake. So
you have to do that all at the same time.
I have to do that all at the same time. So every 90 days, I've got to do all of those sorts of things. So if I see my primary care doctor in the VA 2 weeks before, I still got to go through blood pressure, all that other stuff. Now, here's where I think we have overcomplicated this. There is a CBOC, community-based outpatient clinic for veterans in Idaho Falls and in Pocatello and in Twin Falls and in Boise, and they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So, how about instead of seeing this guy face to face, I go to a CBOC, do my blood pressure, weight, urinalysis, and all that stuff there, because they can do all of that stuff on site. And the reason I'm told, I don't know this for sure because I haven't found the legislation, that legislation requires that. The government requires me to drive to see him, because my understanding is there's 3 doctors that can prescribe the stuff I'm on, and 1 pharmacist who can authorize and fill the prescription in the entire Salt Lake VA system.
Oh, wow.
Cedar City, Utah, up past Idaho Falls, I think about halfway to Cheyenne. So it's a huge footprint for Salt Lake.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And that is a government got way too involved.
Yeah, it's how do you describe this? You have, and I'll also mention that in cases like this, I do think there has to be some sort of oversight. However, this sounds like oversight gone wrong. Right. Where you mentioned these community-based, now are they community-based VA clinics?
Yes. Yes.
So what is their relationship to the VA itself?
They work for the VA. They're all, so they actually work for the Department of Veterans Affairs. The CBOC in Idaho Falls and Pocatello are both part of the Salt Lake VA system. So if I do a blood test, my doctor, my primary care doctor, sees it. If I do it in Salt Lake, Idaho Falls, doesn't matter. So it is the same system. They're just extension clinics of the hospital itself.
Oh, okay. So they're very much connected. Very much. Which, of course, begs the question. I obviously don't know what the regulations are, which means that you actually have to drive 3 hours to Salt Lake, or maybe a little bit more depending on the day. But it obviously doesn't make sense at face value. Right. Somewhere, something, who knows, pencil pusher or what has determined that this is a requirement. Maybe it's because of cut downs. Was there a time previously when you didn't have to do that, or has it always been that way?
No, it's been getting worse over the last 10 years. Okay. And the government likes to make boogeyman out of certain things. Yep. So the single most effective pain management medication for me is OxyContin. But since Purdue Pharma got blamed for the opioid crisis, it's virtually impossible to get. So we do these overcorrections. Right. And as that was shifting, and the opioid crisis is real, I mean, I'm not contesting any of that. It was a massive overcorrection, and we basically burned the house down to try and solve this issue. So we really destroyed the whole system, and that is where the regulations came in, where our primary care doctors cannot prescribe this stuff for us. And it's not just in the VA system. If I go to Mountain View or someplace like that here in town, there isn't a doctor that will, aside from maybe a few hydrocodone after a surgery, And well, I got surgery. I'm exactly 3 weeks post-op on this shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's why that arm's hardly moving.
Right.
So I should be in a sling. Don't share this with my doctor.
I won't.
But I got, as part of my discharge from the hospital after surgery, I got 10 hydrocodone. So that's Vicodin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they could prescribe for me. And if I wasn't getting opioids from the VA, I would have had to call back in every couple days to get more, because they can't let out, apparently the surgeon can't prescribe more than 10 hydrocodone at a time. Because
And, I think one of the best things to respond to that is simply, we have had so much corruption in different levels that this is a sort of, how shall I describe it, over-the-top regulations as a result. Because there's whatever, fraud or something somewhere where somebody is allowed to get something, and we have these over-the-top reactions because, well, we can't have that. So I think what you're also, part of this is a bit of a systemic issue in regards to public use, public authority, and public prescription of these things. Because in general, I would say that government is never as efficient as a private will be. And it also doesn't have the checks and balances that would be required for any private organization. So as a result, you have a situation where people can simply take advantage of it and they're not going to be at fault for it. So what we're seeing is a cause and effect, where the effect is really frustrating for you, and it's affecting you and I don't know how many others, but it's a reaction to something that shouldn't have been in the first place.
right.
Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with a situation like that when the solution is either to create more regulations or to remove some of these ridiculous rules? But to remove them, you have to go through the bureaucracy to get to them in the first place. And the bureaucracy has already determined that this is the way to solve an issue because somebody did something.
Yeah. Yeah, government tends to grow government.
Exactly.
Never seems to come back.
Right.
I think Adam Carolla did a joke on that. So he's about our ages. I'm probably a bit older than you, but
you don't look it.
starting to get pretty gray though.
Hey.
So he was talking about back in the 80s when we were kids, that if you go to the beach, there was a sign that said, no glass bottles on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the rule.
Yeah.
And it made sense because people would break glass bottles, get in the sand, you cut your feet.
Right.
Now, 20 years later, the list, it's almost a billboard of rules.
Right.
And everything, all levels of government, city, state, county, federal, we just keep building on rules.
And you touched on something, I don't want to get too far into this because now we're getting a little bit off, but I think it does apply at principle. The principle of what you just mentioned, I think, is critical, because we have moved from a society where law was determined. There was very limited law. There was the peace officers to regulate everything if something happened. They were there to establish the peace, and if something else happened, the court system was there for it. Now we have this, how shall I describe, just the millions of laws on the books just to try to solve every possible situation. And it's just over-regulated, and it's really stifled a lot of America in a way. What you just mentioned with the beach issue, do we need all those? No. But at some point, some official decided that because somebody did something, we should make a law that you can't do it.
Yes.
And that's just absolute overreach and unnecessary, and that's just the bloat we've been talking about. That affects everything. Coming back to like the VA, that's one of those reasons we have a lot of these restrictions, which, I'll go back to it again, private sector will always solve it better than the public sector. The federal government should stay to the areas that it's reserved, international and other things reserved in the Constitution. But when we start getting into these areas where bureaucratic nightmares come up and we just have these umpteen regulations on everything you can name, that, I think, is a misunderstanding of what our government's supposed to do, and it has taken away what the citizens are responsible for. Ninth and 10th Amendments, both states and citizens. I think that's what we're touching on here, because those are critical. The states and the citizens should reclaim and take control of their duties and responsibilities. And when we see that, then we'll have a smaller government. It's extremely hard to get rid of bureaucracy. Once it's created, it's about as set in stone as anything. But that is the direction to go. Citizens privately can take care of almost everything. And if we take back the authority that we're supposed to have, we'll end up with solutions. A cascade down of that effect will be solutions for this thought up privately, and they're like, this is what makes sense, this is what's right, versus should we regulate that?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot we can do as private citizens to make things better without relying on the government. That's what we're trying to do on our end.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. Whatever we can do to help, because the hard part of dealing with people like us is, first off, we tend to be a physical bunch. You don't become a first responder or join the military if you're a couch potato, in general anyway. And we also we become inherently violent.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a very good point. Please continue.
Yeah, and so dealing with us, especially if we have PTSD, especially if there's chronic pain. When I'm in chronic pain, my temper, and I'm not a person who loses my temper much. It's very, very uncommon. But I do notice that when the pain is not being treated properly, I do lose my temper more. So
let me just jump in there, and I would say that's simply a purely, just take it down to chemicals, shall we say. Your brain is simply responding that way because of the conditions now.
Right.
Your ability to handle, your brain's ability to dampen different things has now been lowered enough that something will set you off. It'll just trigger, and I don't remember all the terms for the brain centers and whatnot, but it's just, that is what has happened, and now you're the recipient of the result.
Yeah. And I think overall there's, the best thing the government can do is kind of deregulate some of that stuff and really push for community-based options. I don't remember who it was, one of the interviews from the last few days. Somebody brought up the idea of mentors. And instead of doing it as a government mentor program, when you retire from law enforcement, firefighters, and for us, for our purposes, we also provide service for emergency room staff, because they see crazy stuff as well. So when you retire or you transition, you get provided with volunteers, a list of people who can help you in that transition process. Because VA is very difficult to navigate. PERSI, the Public Employee Retirement System here in Idaho, can be very difficult for people to navigate. And just having people that know what it's like, who have gone through it, to help you out. What we would need from the government on that would be compiling the list, because we're all public employees, some form or another that way. So what are your thoughts on creating a system like that, so that we're using our volunteers and we're really limiting the role of the government by just basically providing names to the groups of volunteers?
Yes. This isn't going to entirely address it immediately, but you've brought up, once again, an important issue, and I think it should be addressed. I would say before World War II, we had a well-established system of community. Families took care of each other. We had the family unit paramount. Now, in a lot of cases, especially in the modern cities, we have this disconnect from I'll say, essentially reality. People simply don't get along in terms like they used to. It used to be you could rely on your neighbors. You knew your neighbors. Front porches. People would go out, sit on their porches. We've lost a little bit of that. We still have front porches here, but I don't often I sometimes do, and I'm always excited. And if I see someone sitting on a front porch, I instinctively want to go up and say hi. I feel that's part of the community aspect we're touching on here, because if we can return some essence of that community aspect where people, they don't care who you are, they'll care about you. They don't care what your religion, faith, politics are. You are there, you're their neighbor, they care about you. They'll stand up for you. And I think that has been subrogated by the state. Well, it has been subrogated by the state in so many ways. And once again, I mentioned World War II, and I think it was sometime in the decades after that where we started losing that, in the era of we are the world power, we can do anything. And I think we lost touch with human nature in this country. And I think that is one of the keys that will help bring what you're doing back. If we can bring that connection back to the family, back to human nature, back to our neighbors, this is who we are as a person. If we can bring that back, get along despite, who cares what we disagree with, but if we can get along that way, I can see the effort from the community rising to the occasion. It used to be churches and community that took care of anything in need. Well, what happened? They were replaced by the state.
Yeah.
We now have the government taking our money, or money that doesn't even exist, to try to fill that gap. And it's an impersonal thing, the government is. It will never have the connection your community will. So any effort that brings the community forwards to replace what the government is good. And where I especially see that it could happen, if you reduce government spending, which is wasteful by nature. If you reduce that and start bringing that money back to the citizens, they will then have more money. Now, people aren't going to instinctively, immediately say, oh, what can I do for my community? I think that has to be almost a program of like, this is what a community can do. This is who it is. I think it's much better here. In big cities, it would be, I don't know, pulling teeth to try to get something like that to happen right away. I think there are efforts like that, though. So if you can bring that community back, we can switch around the whole aspect of should government be funding it right now. As it is right now, I think it has to happen. I would like to see that gone. But it can't. It's another one of those things where you just can't blanket do it.
Right.
If you just blanket cut this, we're going to have a disaster on our hands. I would like to see a phased program returning to the community what is rightfully theirs.
Absolutely. And I know we can do it. So,
well, yeah.
Eastern Idaho State Fair parade starts right there.
Yeah.
And when we first moved here,
Yeah.
We had young kids, and so trunk or treat for Halloween. And there's a lot of government agencies that push that. Law enforcement do it, firefighters do it, and it really kind of took over trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
This street, I go through $200-300 in candy every year.
Wow.
It's kids lining up for a couple miles. This is, for whatever reason, it's the trick-or-treating street. And what I've observed since 2008 till now is instead of that number shrinking, it increases every year.
Oh, wow.
And
That word's gotten out.
it gets out, and I don't know why, because I had no idea when we moved here. I mean, the first Halloween, I was completely shocked. I'm running back and forth to the store buying candy the whole night. But that makes me really excited because, for what you're saying there, bringing it back to the community, I know we can do that. And
let me jump in right
Yes.
there. And I think there's a Bible verse that is extremely applicable here. And it relates to truth. If truth is on a hill, it talks about like try to hide truth under a basket, Well, that just doesn't work. Truth, when you set it on a hill, everyone sees it. And I think it's an element of human nature and Americans. We recognize that we can take care of each other. We do have a community. I think that's an aspect or an essence of Americans in general. I think that's kind of a traditional aspect. We just know we can recognize that, or at least, let me posit that. I can recognize that. I will say there's probably a lot that don't, but when they see it, they'll feel it and they'll recognize this as something good. Like you're saying, more and more showing up to do this. We had a pretty rough, let's say 5 years ago, things were really rough for everyone. Just not really communicating. We saw at that time how important it was for personal connection, for people to actually get together. Government thought it wasn't important. Well, citizens, we knew better. So I think what you mentioned about we can do it, yes, we can. We just have to, each of us can do it. Each of us just has to have the mindset of looking out for your fellow man.
Yeah. And was what you're talking about there, that incident. It destroyed a lot of industry. It destroyed a lot of lives.
Some of mine, yeah.
Yeah, people became segregated and became more lonely.
Yes.
But I think the good that is coming out of it, because I hope we're on that change, is people are longing for the connection.
Yeah.
They want to be connected with other people. Behind a computer screen, behind a phone is very, very difficult. And aside from seeing how those changes are, seeing the number of trick-or-treaters go up, the number of volunteers we're getting, the people that want to be involved, and it's not so much just the diving part of it or the other programs. it's that connection with other people. And as veterans and as first responders, it's hard for people to communicate with us. We speak in acronyms.
Yeah.
Again, that inherent violence tendency, the language and the wording that we use can be disarming for other people. But we really, as a group, we do thrive on community. And
that goes into some other interesting issues, like the community, the separation of the community that the veterans can thrive on, where they can't connect and where they can. And I think that's a whole nother issue as relates to how that community forms and how it sustains itself. I don't know if we really have time to get into that here, but I think that's another thing that should be looked at, because they have been programmed essentially into a different community. That's at least my quick take on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully...
I'll just continue on that one. And I think that needs to be taken into account. And I would say that's something that the government will be very bad at taking into account, but private citizens will be able to recognize and realize what's happening. They'll be able to coordinate, they'll be able to communicate and figure out how to relate to these different groups, or find the people who will relate to them.
Yeah, it's... So many of these problems, I think, can be solved if we get back to a community. I think you're 100% right on that. Even, link it back to pharmaceuticals. If you're more engaged with other people, you're going to be using less psychoactive drugs, the SSRIs, stuff like that. And I think as a whole, we need to be looking at alternatives to throwing medication at people.
Yeah, I completely agree with that last part. We were, I believe we were created by God, and we have, He created us to want companionship, or to need it. And whatever form that might take. To some it might be the dog, the German Shepherd. I had a blue heeler myself, loved it. But to everyone it's different, where there's no one size fits all. So, and I will want to hear more from you in the future on this, especially. How can we, not necessarily in my official role as a legislator, if I get elected, but I would say I will definitely pay attention to it, and I would be aware to it, and I would want to know what are ways we can continue establishing a community that supports first responders and veterans, because that is really, I feel like we're at a time in the country where we really have to return that. Think of what happened after the Vietnam War, when those veterans were returning. That's the lack and the anger at them. I don't know if that was almost better than the lack of attention now. Do you get what I mean?
I absolutely do.
And neither of them is good, but at least people paid attention.
Yeah.
It neither was good at all, and I hate making that comparison, but I do agree with you in that I think things are going on the positive direction right now, which you've been mentioning. We really have an uptick in people paying attention and starting to realize life isn't necessarily all about what you have, what you do. Life is about other people as well. It's very important to take care of others whatever way we can, and that is one of our responsibilities.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it in the veterans and first responders. When you get them together, everybody's on guard. Well, I'll tell you, so the first class we did, we brought in about half of them were veterans, half of them were first responders. The first night, everybody was just like statues. It was like being on Easter Island, seeing the big statue heads. And
I've been there myself, and I'm not even a veteran.
Yeah.
We all have at some point, but yes, continue.
So first night, everybody just, when the class was over, just gone.
Yeah.
And then as it progressed, because we were doing classes about every other night, the classroom session, everybody started interacting. We had cops talking to soldiers and firefighters. Cops and firefighters don't get along so good most of the time.
Oh, wow.
When they're working, they do fine. In social, some departments are better than others, but there's a few where there's certainly some conflicts. But by the time we did our last bit, we had to leave. I left before our students did, because they were just going. So I see that, and I would love to see other people kind of doing what we're doing, and just find outlets, and push away from government programs, and find, reach out and help with
Thank you.
with private programs.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely going to give us a leg up. So from a state legislature standpoint, I hear all the time that people who are in office, their goal is to pass a bill. And you've got this, well, they didn't do anything. They didn't pass any bills. They didn't propose any bills their time in the legislature.
Yeah.
So now we have this system where I have people coming to me. I know other veterans, people go to them. What can we do to pass a law to help you? Well, we don't necessarily need you to pass laws. We need you to reduce laws.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on, do you feel it's necessary just to drive forward and pass a law so that you can say you accomplished something? Or let me rephrase it slightly. What is your metric for success when it comes to veteran and first responders issues from a legislative standpoint?
That's a really good question, actually, and I like how you highlighted what people view in terms of success. I think that I would say that most people get into office, is it three things: power, control, and influence? That's usually one of the three things people want when they get into office. I don't want the power, I don't need the influence, and I don't want the control. Because I think control should rest in the hands of the people. I think the power should rest in the hands of the people, and the people should also have the influence. If my role is getting into office is to be a public servant as best as I can be, I do not want to pass more bills. I do not think that's the solution. As I mentioned earlier, the solution, as we mentioned, the beach, glass bottles on the beach or whatever it is, the solution for local jurisdictions was, we'll just tack another law on this, and now we have this list. And once again, I said, coming back to that, I think that's the jurisdiction of the courts. Life should be a lot simpler. Life would be a lot simpler if we were more responsible. But we've delegated that responsibility to the government to take care of us in a lot of cases. We as citizens should be responsible for ourselves, and through that, I don't see a need, if I get into the legislature, Lord willing if I do, I don't see a need to do that. In fact, I would love to start chopping stuff off the books. I'll start with the ones that are outdated, the funny ones.
Right.
But, whatever. I would love to see a session where no new regulations are added, and instead we have returned power to the people in as many ways as possible. Because I know that through that, we can bring back a lot of the things we've been talking about. As much as possible. If I pass a bill in office, it had better be something that is freedom, directed by freedom and constitutional principles and God's laws. If it's not, I don't see how I would want to do it.
It's always striking to me, and I have a leather bag I carry stuff around in, and in that bag, the two things that are always there is the state constitution for Idaho, and our federal constitution. And the federal constitution is just a little pamphlet, little itty bitty thing. The state constitution and laws are quite a bit thicker.
Oh yeah.
And we're to the point now where even on a state level, the laws that we pass are thousands of times bigger than the Constitution. And so we've just created so much confusion when it comes to what is legal, what is not, what are programs supposed to do.
Right.
And I'd love to see you peel back some of the regulation.
Yeah,
simplify.
I would say it's a socialistic tendency, and a lot of people think of socialism as friendly and able to take care of you. But in the long run, it's a matter of who is responsible for my life. And socialism thinks it's the government's opinion or government's perspective, government's realm. But I would always say as an American, independent American in a free enterprise system, it is my role to be responsible for myself. It's never going to be the government's. So this outcropping and just overreach of laws everywhere, and I'm not saying some of them aren't justified.
Sure.
In a lot of cases they are. But the more we take responsibility for ourselves, the more we represent ourselves as upstanding free citizens of the United States of America and as residents of Idaho, citizens of Idaho, the more we do that, the less we need those laws. I'm delving into a whole bunch of other issues, and that stuff I might not ever even see happen in my lifetime. But I think that's the right way to go.
Absolutely. Well, so we've got a couple minutes left. Is there anything you want to touch on, or any message you want to send out there?
Yeah, and let me just take a quick look over some of this and see if there wasn't anything we really touched on. In general, this has been really good.
Yeah, and while you're looking at that, so anybody, regardless of political party, what level of office you're running for. If you'd like to sit down and talk about veterans and first responders issues, we would love to have you. Ethan's actually got the sheet that I gave out. It's straightforward. You can talk about anything you want as long as it's related to veterans and first responders issues. You cannot bash on your opponent or another political party. This is informational, not a campaign stop. How about that? So,
yeah, you know what, and I would say there, I may have done a little bit of government bashing, so I'm hoping that's okay.
Yeah, government bashing is one thing. It's I didn't hear you say anything about your opponent, nor did I hear you say anything about your political party or anybody else's.
No need for that.
Yeah, and in this venue, if people understand what my personal politics are, if they knew what party I belong to or something like that, probably doing the wrong thing. However, I think that everybody has something that they can add to the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad some of the other people are coming and other people are scheduling these sit-downs. We need to talk more instead of blaming the other side for the problems that you see. The tantrums that we're seeing on a federal level right now is ridiculous. It's all of a sudden, too, it's fashionable for people to swear on national TV as a politician.
I don't think so, but yes. Yeah, where did this come from?
It's the de-evolution of dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And I think talking, having forums like this, variety of other things, talk to each other. And I know people who don't like veterans. I know people who don't like first responders. That doesn't mean we can't have a grown-up conversation about what is best for each other.
And I guess I would say, to kind of follow up and wrap it up here, is you've touched on some really good points, and it comes back to what I was saying about community, where I didn't bring up, well, I did mention what I'm running for, but I didn't bring up on my opponent, I didn't bring up party or anything like that, because I think that at a core, Americans don't, politics is a very divisive thing. And we tend to divide ourselves by that. Like, this person is that, oh, I can never get along with them. But I find that I can usually get along with anyone I talk to. There's going to be a common denominator somewhere. Whether it's countryside, whether it's, a hobby of some sort. I can respect a person who is an American. If they respect the American values, we'll have even more to agree along with. But I will get along with just about anyone, because I think that's part of what living here is all about. So I don't have to touch on those other issues, because we're here focusing on what is happening to the veterans, first responders, and firefighters. What is happening to them is not good, and there needs to be a solution. And we have to try to get the communities back into it. Not by the government. No, I'm not going to legislate you have to take care of your neighbors. That's just not the way to go about it. But what I will want to do is have future conversations and to see ways that we can cooperate and figure out how to deregulate, how to bring the community back into it, so that we all have, we as citizens can feel the pride and accomplishment of taking care of each other. That is one thing I think we really need to feel, and I wish to see that to happen.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you everybody for watching. We have a few more guests that are coming up very shortly. One of them you're going to love. This is going to be great. So if you want to help out and be part of what we're doing, go to heroesdivingforthesea.org. We've got all kinds of fun stuff going on. We've got a couple raffles. We have a scavenger hunt. I don't know if I talked to you about it.
I need more. I saw something. I want more info.
The scavenger hunt's going to be a lot of fun. So again, reach out to us. You can get a hold of Aubrey at admin@heroesdivingforthesea.org. She can set you up with an interview with me. This whole studio is actually mobile. When we had a little bit of a power surge, so the studio space downstairs is being remodeled. So I can actually come to you. So if it's reasonable, I'll travel to you. If not, we can do something remotely. So thank you very much, Ethan. I appreciate you coming. Good luck on your campaign. And
thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for doing what you're doing, because I think it's important.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.